Good day, everyone. My name is Rachel Villasotes, and I will be going to report about the terms related to American government and politics. So, I will now touch first about the Americanism. So, what is it? Americanism is an ideal of loyal patriotism, religious tolerance, righteous freedom, fearless courage, honest integrity, abiding faith in the commanding destiny of the United States, and a fathomless love for the principles that lead our forefathers to found this country. So when we say Americanism, ang iyang muna siya ang iyang loyalty towards a country which is the United States. So not only for on their states but also the principles or mga kanabitang mga batas na naka-inline sa ilahang country. A person living there is giving respect to it. So the objective of the broad far-reaching community service program, the Sons of the American Legion, is to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation. So, Americanism includes aspect of praise, purity of white American, and of American Protestantism. So, community service is a major American activity. Then, so, according to this, kanunay nilang kanabitang ipabalik-balik or iparemind ang matag buta nga dapat ipatuman ang ilahang mga obligasyon sa paghatag sa mga serbisyo sa ilahang community, sa state o sa nation. The next term is the U.S. Constitution. So, when we say U.S. Constitution, it is the supreme law of the United States of America. So, it defines the principal organs of government under jurisdiction and the basic rights of citizens. And it is established the individual rights and liberties of all Americans. So, usa ni siya ka law or usa ni siya ka kanambalaod nga nagdetermine sa powers ug duties sa ilahang government. So, here ang intention nila for this constitution is kanang magaranti unsaon nila paggaranti ang mga katungod ang rights sa usa ka citizens nga namuyo ana nga lugar, ana nga country, ana nga states. Then there are three main functions of US Constitution. So first, it creates a national government consisting of a legislative, an executive, judicial branch, with a system of check and balances among the three branches. So usa ni kanang ang ilahang government adto is kanang form siya into three branches, which is the legislative branch, executive, and judicial branch. So with a system of check and balances kung asa ang each branches has its different functions. And then second, it divides power between the federal government and the states. So kanang gidivide ni siya between the federal government o sa states. When we say federal government, kanang usa ni siya ka system of government nga gidivide ang power between a central national government o ang local state nga government, but they are committed gihapon to with each other sa kanang in terms of national government. Then third, it protects various individuals' liberties of American citizen. Then the first 10 amendments to the Constitution is called Bill of Rights. The first amendments of the U.S. Constitution guarantees and protects the following rights. First, the freedom of speech, which everyone has the right to freedom of expression. Like, let's take example, it includes the freedom to hold opinions and to receive informations. Then second is the freedom of religion. So, when we say freedom of religion, here everyone has the ability to believe, worship, and follows the faith without punishment from the government. Then third is the freedom of assembly. So when we say freedom of assembly, it is the right that hold public meetings, form association without the interference of the government. So here, they have a freedom to have a peaceful assembly. So the fourth amendments of the U.S. Constitution is the freedom of press. So here it's giving rights about informed citizens about public affairs and monitoring the actions of government of all levels. Then the last one is the freedom of petition of the government. So it includes here the right to gather signatures in support of a cause, or it is the right to present requests to the government without punishment or reprisal. Then let's now go to political parties and party system. So first, let's tackle the political party. So what is it? So political party, it is an autonomous group of citizens having the purpose of making nominations and contesting elections in the hope of gaining control over government power through the capture of public offices and the organization of the government. So kanang in so kanang here, it's a group of citizens nga naa sila'y katungod sa pag-nominate sa ilahang candidate in an election. So if ever nga ang ilahang nominee is makasulod, makagain sila og control. Then in political party, the process to obtain such power is to gain control of the government, but political parties also exercise power by influencing the policies of the governments not under their control. So here ang ilahang giobtain ani is para makagain og control sa government, but they also exercise the power nga nag-influence sa policies sa gobyerno which is not under their control. Then the basic purpose of political parties is to nominate candidates for public office and to get as many of them elected as possible. So there are 4 functions of political party. So first is nomination. So when we say nomination, it is a kanang process of selecting ang candidate for the election. The next is organization. So it's an organization that kanang involves itself in the political process. Then the third function is policy choices. So it is co-created by a kanang political party kanang using data, proof, and information. Then the last one is the coordination. So means it makes in cooperation, consultation at the request. So there are also types of kanang political party. So the 3 types of political parties are: first, elite or the cadre parties. Then second is the mass parties, and the third is the catch-all parties. So when we say cadre parties, so it is dominated by political elite group of activists, so mga aktivista nga nasa kanang mga higher class. Then when we say mass parties, it is a unite of hundreds of thousands of followers. So daghan siya, no? Sa ilang daghan ka ilang mga member ani, only the criterion of mass-based party, but the essential factor is to kanang attempt to base itself on an appeal to the masses. It's attempt to organize nga kanang willing mo join sa party. Then the third one is the catch-all party. So it is political kanang party that allows to attract people nga naa sila'y nagkalain-lain nga kanang panlantaw sa kanang politika. Next is the party system. So, party system defines individuals who share a common set of political beliefs, organize themselves into parties to compete in elections for the rights to govern. So, kanang it is a set of people kung asa naghatag sila sa ilahang mga nagkalain-lain nga tinuuhan when it comes to politics. Mura ba og kanang kung mauni ang iyahang beliefs ani, mag-organize ang grupo nga pareho mo og kanang perception sa mga inyong beliefs. Then function of party system. So the function of party system are to control the government, have a stable base of mass popular support, and create an internal mechanism for controlling funding, information, and nomination. So let's now go to the types of party system. So there are 5 types of party system. Number 1 is the one-party system. Second, dominant party system. Third, two-party system. And fourth, multi-party system. And the last one is the non-partisan system. So let's proceed first for the one-party system. So what is it? So when we say one-party system, it is a form of government where the country is ruled sa usa ka single political party. Ani nga type is only one political party exists. Then Second is the dominant party system. So, it is a political occurrence in which a single political party dominates election results, overrunning opposition group or parties. Then the third is the two-party system, kanang muhatag og dako nga boto ang kanang electorate ani siyang botos to only kanang two major parties, and in which one are the or the other party can win ingenuity in the legislator. Then the fourth one is the multi-party system. So ang system in which multiple political parties across the political spectrum run for national elections and all have the capacity to gain control of government offices or in coalition. Then, the last one is the non-partisan system. So, it is a system of representative government or organization. In non-partisan system, ang president is magpabilin siya nga neutral kanang when regards to kanang partisan politics. Next term is the elections and voting behavior. So, elections, what does it mean? The election is the formal process of selecting a person for public office or of accepting or rejecting a political proposition by voting. So, a function of election, first, is election make a fundamental contribution to democratic governance. Then second, elections enable voters to select leaders and to hold them accountable for their performance in the office. So, pinaagi sa election, makahimo mo pili ang mga voters sa candidates nga ilang gusto nga capable o deserving sa usa ka position. The next function, the third, is election does provide a political education for citizens and ensure the responsiveness and of democratic governments to the will of the people. So, kanang ani niya is kanang ang election as nag-provide po siya og kanang knowledge sa mga in terms of politics sa mga citizens sa usa ka country. Then kanang fourth one is election also reinforce the ability and legitimacy of the political party. And finally, elections serve as a self-actualizing purpose by confirming the worth and dignity of individual citizens to human beings. Then there are types of elections. So, first types is the elections of office holders. So, when we say election of office holders, here, electorate have only a limited power to determine government politics. So, ang political parties are kanang central to the election of office holders. Then second types of election is the recall elections. So, recall elections, it is designed to ensure that an elected official will act in the interest of his constituency rather than in the interest of his political party or according to his own conscience. Then ang actual nga instrument pod ani niya is usually a letter of a resignation signed by the elected representative. Then the next type of elections is referendum and initiative. So an election here in which the preferences of the community are assessed on a particular issue. Then the last type of election is the plebiscite. So when we say plebiscite, these are elections held to decide two paramount types of political issues: government legitimacy and the nationality of territories contested between governments. So when we say kanang plebiscite, kanang moingon tag plebiscite, kuan ni siya kanang a vote in which people sa usa ka country nag-express silang opinion or kanang against sila sa proposal, especially as a choice of kanang government. Then the voting behavior. So when we say voting behavior, it is a form of electoral behavior. Understanding voters' behavior can explain how and why decisions were made either by public decision makers, which has been a central concern for political scientists, or by the electorate. So when we say voting behavior, it is a behavior nga sa usa ka citizen do the right to vote nga ngano og giunsa nga may comes up siya sa usa ka butang nga miboto siya in that such way. Then three cleavage-based voting factor. First is the religion. So religion, it is often a factor which influences one's party choice. Then second influential factor is class. If one if one is in what is considered the working class, they are typically more likely to vote for a party on the right side of the political scale, whereas kanang nasa middle class voters, they are more likely to identify with a party on the left side of the political scale. Then the third is the influence of gender. Next term is the presidential selection. A presidential election is that election of any head of state whose official title is president. So, the election of the president and the vice president of the United States is an indirect election in which citizens of the United States who are registered to vote in one of the 50. So, this election then cast direct votes known as kanang electoral votes for president. So, in a presidential election, also when citizens cast their ballots for president in the popular vote, they elect a state of electors. Then the electors cast the vote that decide who became president of the United States. So here, the Electoral College is the constitutional body that elects the president. So sila, and voters actually vote sila for the members of the Electoral College pod of the state level. Then, another term is the presidency. So, presidency, it is an administration or the executive, the collective administrative and government entity that exists around an office of president of a state or nation. So, then, what is the president rules? So, the first rule of the president is the chief of state. So, what is it? So, when we say chief of state, here the president as the he is the ceremonial head of the United States. Then, second is the chief executive. So, here the president, the one who holds the executive power of the United States. Then, a president rule is a commander-in-chief. So, he is also the top person in charge of a nation's armed forces. Then, another president's rule is the president is a chief diplomat. So, the president are the main architect of American foreign policy and the nation chief spokesperson of the other country. Then, another rules of the president. A president is also called as a chief legislator. So, he is the one who shapes public policy. The president may suggest, request the laws he believes nga kanang kinahanglanon jud ba. Then, the last kanang rules so sa kanang president, he is a super politician. So, it means that the president helps kanang party raise money and elect candidates. So unsay mga qualifications sa usa ka president sa United States. So ang president day kinahanglan nga natural born American citizen, at least kanang 35 years old o kanang have been a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. Another term is the Congress. So Congress is the legislative branch of the federal government that represents the American people and makes the nation laws. It shares power with the executive branch, led by the president, and the judicial branch, whose highest body is in the Supreme Court of the United States. So, Congress divided into two institutions, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate. So, when we say House of Representatives, ang mga member ani is kanang nagrepresent sila sa ilahang mga individual nga district. So, while sa Senate, ilang gi-represent is the entire state. So, kaning usa pud ang mga ways sa mga member nganong na-elect sila ani. So, they are elected. The ways that they are elected is through a direct popular vote. So, ang senator is na-elect siya via a statewide vote, while the representatives, they are elected by voter in each congressional district. Then, Congress has the power to make laws, declare war, raise and provide public money, and oversees its proper expenditure, impeach and try federal offices. So, they are, napo sila katungod nga mo impeach, no? Then, approve presidential appointments, approve treaties negotiated by the executive branch, oversight and investigations. Next term is the interest group. So interest group is a group of people working together through an organization and advocating on behalf of shared interest. Interest groups abound in the United States, and interest groups serve as a means of political participation of their members. The primary goal of interest groups they are to influence decision makers o kana mga public policies through the advocacies on behalf of its members. Then there are types of interest groups. So first type is the economic interest. So when we say economic interest, it is an interest group kanang it is the most prominent in all countries. There are literally 1,000 of them with offices in national capital. So there are several kinds of kanang economic interest. So muna ang mga business group, kanang labor group, ug kanang sa pa professional group, kanang farm group, o kanang second type of interest group is kanang cost group. So kaning cost group are those that represent a segment of society but whose primary purpose is non-economic and usually focus on promoting a particular cause or value. So kanang this category include kanang churches and religion organization, sa pa kaning veterans groups, ug kanang ay, mag-support po sila sa rights o sa usa ka kanang people with disabilities. And then the kanang third types of interest group is the public interest group. Kasi siya, it promotes issues of general public concern like kanang tatong environmental protection, human rights, consumer rights, then the last type ang fourth type sa kanang interest group is the private and public institutional interest. So they are term interest but opposed to the kanang interest groups. But ang private organizations such as business and ang public entities such as kanang government departments. Then the last type of kanang interest group is the non-associational groups and interests. So rarely will organize and their activity is kanang dependent upon the issue of at hand. So another term that related to the American government and politics is the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is the highest court within the hierarchy of courts in many legal jurisdiction. Other description for such courts include court of the last resort, apex court, and high or final court of appeal. Then kaning ang decision po sa ka Supreme Court have an important impact po na siya, dako siya impact sa society. Then the Supreme Court also plays a very important role in our constitutional system of government. So first of this as Supreme Court as the highest court in the land. It is the court of last resort for those looking for justice. Then second, it plays an essential role in ensuring that each branch of government recognizes the limits of its own power. Third, it protects the civil rights and liberties by striking down the laws that violate the Constitution. Then finally, it sets appropriate limits on democratic government by ensuring that popular majorities cannot pass law that harm and or take undue advantage of unpopular minorities. Next term is the federal bureaucracy. So when we say federal bureaucracy, it is the unelected administrative body in the executive branch. It is the backbone of the U.S. Constitution, a U.S. government. It is arranged into departments, agency, and commission. So the main function of federal bureaucracy is to carry out of the policy and to work on the finer details of the bill passed by the Congress. Then there are 5 types of organizational in the federal bureaucracy. So first here is the cabinet department. So in cabinet department, the executive office consists of kanang 15 siya of 15 ka departments. Each department is headed by the kanang secretary. Then the second kanang types is the independent executive agencies are the line organization that do not fall under the control kanang of any one department. Then the third is the independent regulatory agencies. Then it is an agency outside of the cabinet departments that makes and enforces rules and regulations. Here, ang president kay monominate siya to regulate boards and agencies, and the Senate confirms them. Then the fourth one is the government corporation. So in government corporation, it is differ in some important ways from private corporation. So example ani is government corporation do not have stockholders and do not pay dividends if they make a profit. Then the last is the presidential commission. So here kanang presidents regularly appoint presidential commissions and to investigate problems and make recommendation, but of those commission are temporarily. Then next term is the domestic policy. So domestic policy, it refers to the plans and actions taken by a national government to deal with issues and needs present within the country itself. So it also generally developed by the federal government, often in consultation with state and local governments. So the process of dealing U.S. relations and issues with other nations is known foreign policy. But so ani sa domestic policy, it is an action nga ilang ipahimo sa ilahang government in order nga kanang to resolve the issues facing by the country. So in the goals of kanang domestic policy is to kanang the goals of the domestic policy is to minimize unrest and dissatisfaction among the nation's citizens. It tends to stress areas such as improving law enforcement and healthcare. So domestic policy, there are also types of domestic policy in the United States. So first is the regulatory policy. So it is focused on maintaining social order by outlawing behavior and actions that endanger the public. This is typically accomplished by enacting laws and policies kanang among mga companies and other parties from taking action that might endanger to social order. Then the next type is distributive policy. So here it is focuses on ensuring the fair provision of the taxpayer supported government benefits, goods and services to all individuals, groups and corporations. So such goods and services nga funded by the citizens are taxes include kanang items like kanang public education, public safety, roads, bridges, ug kanang mga welfare program. Next is the redistributive policy. So it is focuses on one of the most difficult and controversial aspect of domestic policy, which is the equitable sharing of the nation's wealth. So the goal of this is to fairly transfer funds raised through taxation from one group to another. Then the last is the constituent policy. It is focused on creating government agencies to help provide services to the public. Next term is the foreign policy. So, foreign policy are the goals that a state officials seek to attain abroad, the values that give rise to those objectives, and the means or instrument used to pursue them. Then, the goals of foreign policy, the United States and the lives of its citizens, to ensure the nation maintains access to key resources and markets across the world. Then the third, the preservation of a balance of power in the world. Then the last, the protection of human rights and democracy. So kung kuan po ni siya kining federal foreign policy usa ka strategy nga gi-design or gi-implement to manage a country's relationship sa uban nga countries. Then there are types of foreign policy. So first is the trade. So in trade is the way that the United States interact with the other countries to ease the flow of kanang commerce and goods services between sa kada countries. Then diplomacy, it is the establishment and maintenance of a formal relationship between countries, especially kung muhisgot og kanang about sa tourism, taxation, taxation of goods, kanang ilahang gitrade, actively their relation on formalized through its sharing pinaagi sa ambassador. So they are ambassador is kuan ni sila kanang country representatives. So next type is the sanctions. So it is a political and economic decision uh, that are part of diplomatic efforts by countries or regional organizations, either to protect national security interests or protect international law and defend against threat to international peace. And another kanang type sa kanang foreign policy is the military defense. That shaping the military and defense, the shaping implementing security policy in many countries. In short, it is kanang protect its society from subversion, lawlessness, and insurgency. Then the fifth type of foreign policy is the intelligence. So it is relating to capabilities, kanang intentions, and creativity of foreign powers and organization, or its purpose is to kanang prevent spies or other agents of foreign power from penetrating the country, government, o kanang armed services. And next is the foreign aid. So it is referred to any type of assistance that one country voluntarily transferred to another. But in the United States, foreign aid usually refers to siya to a military and economic assistance provided federal government provides to other countries. Then next is the global and environmental policy. So it is interplay between domestic and international political forces, institutions that deals with environment relationship. And that's all the type of foreign policy. And I think these are all the term related to American government and politics.